Hey y'all, it's K-Bird Tweets, and this is Peace, Love, and Baseball. Hello and welcome to Peace, Love, and Baseball Live. I'm your host, K-Bird Tweets, and yes, we are streaming, recording live on YouTube, Twitter, and our Facebook page. Hey, if you're listening to the podcast, though, as per usual on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or Amazon Music, fabulous. That will be the same as always, coming at you with a new episode every Tuesday. Nothing different. But we are going to try some live episodes, at least for the off-season. We are going head-to-head with Monday Night Football. Yeah, you can find Peace, Love, and Baseball live on Monday nights at 7 p.m. And one of the main reasons that I wanted to try this out is for the potential of live chat interaction and feedback. And it's just easier for me to put it on video this way as well. So please, if you are tuning in, feel free to share your thoughts and chime in the chat, ask questions on topics as we cover them. And oh, do we have plenty to cover this week? Yeah, so much has happened since we last spoke just a week ago. The 2023 season has officially come to a close. We closed the book on the postseason, and the Texas Rangers are world champions for the first time in franchise history. Yeah, they won it all over the Diamondbacks in just 5 games. Their superstar shortstop, Corey Seager, was named World Series MVP, and the sweet sounds of Creed blasted through Chase Field and onto the streets of Texas for a World Series parade and celebration at the end of last week. So big congratulations to the Texas Rangers. You know, I was pulling for the Snakes, but all in all, it was a great series. It was great to see 2 teams that we don't always see in the World Series. And there was a lot of really fun and good baseball played all postseason long. The Rawlings Gold Gloves have been awarded for the 2023 season. A few notable winners here. 2 rookies, Brenton Doyle, who's a center fielder for the Colorado Rockies, and Anthony Volpe, who is the shortstop for the New York Yankees. They took home Gold Glove awards. Give it up for the rookies. And 2 Cubs infielders, Nico Horner at second base and Dansby Swanson at shortstop. I don't know about you, but as a Cardinals fan, I am personally very uncomfortable with the Chicago Cubs having good defense. And well, we're going to talk more about other things about the Chicago Cubs that are making me uncomfortable lately because, yeah, it's not getting any more comfortable over here as a Cardinals fan. Anyway, Gold Gloves, let's stay on topic here. Ke'Bryan Hayes, who was the third baseman for the Pittsburgh Pirates, he took home his first very well-deserved Gold Glove at third base because for the first time in 11 years, it was not won by Nolan Arenado. But big kudos to Ke'Bryan Hayes because he was definitely in the shadow of Arenado for the past couple years, and it's good to see him get that recognition. And in fact, for the first time since 2017, there were 0 Gold Glove Award winners from the St. Louis Cardinals in perhaps the biggest award snub since Glenn Close and everything she's ever been in, Tommy Edman. Yeah, Tommy Edman, the lone Cardinals nominee for a Gold Glove. He did not win the NL Utility Gold Glove. I'm going to try to keep my heart rate down because we've got more on that later. In other news, free agency is here. Yes, today, November 6th, as I'm talking to you live, or this Monday, November 6th, if you're listening to it after. Today marks 5 days since the end of the World Series, and that means that the free agent market is officially open. In the 5 days after the World Series, free agents can only negotiate and potentially sign with their current team. But now that the market is open, they can sign and negotiate with any team that they would like and any team that would like them. So that will continue to keep us talking all off season long. as of course, there is no cutoff to when these players have to sign, and there's going to be all kinds of movement and exciting headlines all season long. It'll keep us talking. You may have also heard a lot about qualifying offers in the last week or so. And that is when a player and or a team has the option to pick up a previously agreed upon contract for another year, or they can opt out of it. So if it's the team's option, the team has to pick up the option, has to be like, yeah, you know what, we're going to offer you that deal that we already negotiated, and you can come on back. If it's a player option, then the player has the choice to say, yep, that's a good deal for me, I'm going to stick with it. Or if they want to hit the open market again in hopes of claiming a higher value in that case, or go into a different team. So tons of action there. None of it was too terribly surprising, but we will talk a little bit about that today as well. And it is not just the players in Major League Baseball who are making moves and signing big contracts. Major League Baseball managers are playing their own game of musical chairs, and more than usual, it seems, this offseason. And we got some big news from the Mets, the Cubs, and the Guardians today in regards to who you will see leading their teams from the dugout next season. Yeah, there are plenty of manager jobs still available in 2024 with the Angels, Brewers, Astros, and Padres, who have yet to name a skipper for next season. Plus, the finalists for the Baseball Writers Association of America Awards have been announced just within the last couple hours. I'm catching up on them myself. So we'll go over that together. Rookie and Manager of the Year for each league. We've got the Cy Young, which is the pitching award, and the MVP, Most Valuable Player award. We'll go over those finalists, maybe check in with you with your favorites to win. And if there's any snubs, was there anybody that you didn't see on there that you thought maybe should have at least gotten a nomination, gotten a nod? Yeah, we've got all of that and more to cover today. So that's going to take us right up until 8 o'clock, I'm sure. Stick along for all of it. I'm here for it. But first, we have a very serious debate to settle, and I'm glad you're here for it. There is a big conversation happening, I assume nationwide, maybe even worldwide right now, and we are going to settle it here on Peace, Love, and Baseball. There are a lot of people that feel very passionately about this. So again, feel free to chime in with your personal takes in the chat as we dive in here. Is it Christmas? Is the holiday season upon us? Is it time to decorate? Let's start there, because there's a lot of different angles to come at this from. Personally, I think there is some serious gray area that we need to discuss when it comes to the transition into the Christmas and the holiday season. And I can only really speak to Christmas because that's the holiday that I personally celebrate. I think the word transition is going to be important here to help us kind of wrap our minds around this. And you might say, I don't want to snub Thanksgiving. I love Thanksgiving. I want to celebrate it. I want to give it the recognition that it deserves. Absolutely. I don't think any of this takes away from Thanksgiving. And if anything, it is only highlighting and further celebrating Thanksgiving as part of the holiday season. So that is my take on it not taking away from Thanksgiving specifically. But you could put up some lights. You could start, burning your gingerbread candles. And really any day now, because I'm ready for that. And maybe that's because I live here in the Midwest. It's cold. It's gray. Daylight savings has happened this past weekend, so it's basically dark all the time. So give me some joy and some glimmer and some warm and cozy feels. Now, is it an acceptable time here in the first week of November to listen to Christmas music? This is a little bit different. But again, I say, why no gray area here? Those of you who are having a very visceral reaction to walking into the grocery store on November 2nd, hearing Jingle Bell Rock, I hear you. So what I'm saying is, why do the radio stations have to go full on Christmas all at once? Like, why can't we play half Christmas and holiday music and like half not? Are we really that lazy on the radio these days? We just pull out the Christmas album and it's separate. We've got to go all in or nothing. Why the extreme? Why is there no in between? I'm not going to lie to you. I have listened to a few Christmas tunes here and there over the past week here on November 6th. But I am not ready to go full throttle yet. Do not get me wrong. It is not the only thing in my Spotify queue. The first Christmas song I listened to this year was this banging instrumental version of All I Want for Christmas Is You by the Piano Guys. So whether you've listened to any Christmas songs or not yet, what is the first Christmas or holiday song that you're going to be queuing up this season? Do you have one in particular that you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I can listen to this song again? Because do it, okay? This is like next level here. Now we're really getting into it. Is your tree up? Is your Christmas tree up? Oh, the tree. Okay. Well, there are some folks out there right now that I don't want to throw their frozen turkey at your Christmas tree and shut that down until Black Friday. For me, again, personally, it's a little early for the tree. I think it's totally fine if you have it up. I'm not mad about it. One of my neighbors actually had a Halloween tree, full on dedicated to Halloween. I actually thought it was orange. I don't think so now, seeing it in their window now that they've transitioned into a Christmas tree. But I think they just had like so many orange lights on it that it looked orange. Anyway, very fun, very creative, very festive. You do you. But they turned it right into a Christmas tree. Love the multi-purpose and creativity. Personally, I'm probably going to wait until the week of Thanksgiving to put it up for me. Just to spread the fun and decorating out too, you know? It's got to be up by the weekend after Thanksgiving though, I think, right? Of course, if you have a family tradition of putting the tree up or like going to get a tree, do you have a real tree? Who has a real tree? We used to have a real tree. But then we had a boy dog and he started peeing on it when I was growing up. So that was when we transitioned to a fake tree. And now I have a very hefty cat who would probably get stuck in a real tree. So we're sticking with the fake tree for now. But if you have a tradition with the tree and that aligns with when you set it up every year, all that fun stuff, amazing. Then you do not even have to worry about this because that's really special and really fun. We could debate this all day, my friends, and I'm sure we always will to some extent. But today, I want to give you my hard and fast rules for when it is fully acceptable to embrace the Christmas season. In my opinion, there are 3 things that need to happen for it to unapologetically be Christmas. One of them is objective, and the other 2 are a little bit more subjective. Like they might not always fall at the same date or even the same month. 1, Halloween is over. Halloween needs to be over. When I see Christmas things before Halloween, that is really the only time that I'm like, absolutely not. This is wrong. 2, the first snow of the year has happened. This is obviously climate dependent. I have always lived in a place where it usually snows by the middle of November, if not before. We had our first snow of the year here this year on Halloween. So it's come and gone. And it like fully accumulated. We had like solid like inch of snow. The third thing is that the World Series is over. Sometimes it's over before November. But then, Halloween's got to be over too. So that takes care of that. Sometimes it's not over until, it could have gone until today, until November 6th. So it's just another good marker. If all 3 of these things have happened, you take it from me and you have no shame. Do not let anyone tell you that it's too early. Haul out the holly and jingle those bells because what else is there to live for? But seriously, Hanukkah also starts on December 7th of this year. So if you're decorating for that holiday, it's also like definitely time because it's a month away. Not sure if you can hear producer June and Louise, but they're obviously very passionate about this holiday conversation as well. They're ready for me to put some damn lights up. Let's go. So again, to each their own, but as a professional of absolutely nothing that warrants me making these rules, those are your rules. You're welcome. And hey, Merry Christmas. Let's get to these Major League Baseball notable off-season dates now that we have clarified that we're all on the same page about the holidays. Feels good, doesn't it? Well, we talked about how today, November 6th, is the first official day of free agency. So free agency starts today. It always starts 5 days post the World Series ending. So it's always a little subjective, but when the World Series is over, that countdown is on. All contract options have to be decided upon by teams and players in this 5-day period. So that's what we were talking about with the options, whether it's a team option or a player option. So that's all said and done. And what you have been seeing come out and all the conversations have been about in this past week, because before today, that was all there really was to report on. So with the players or teams that opt out of options, the free agent market changes, right? Because players then decline or have their options declined and they join the free agent market. So it's set as of today. Now, these player and team options are not to be confused with qualifying offers, which are also due 5 days after the World Series. A qualifying offer is a 1-year contract that can be offered to specific players who have never received a 1-year contract. So they're usually first-time free agents and who have spent the entire season on the Major League Baseball roster. The amount that the qualifying offer is set each year by Major League Baseball. So it's determined by the market, and this year it is $20.5 million. If a team makes a qualifying offer to a player, the player has 10 days to decide whether or not to accept it, or he then joins the unrestricted free agents. He'll join the pool. There are 7 players this year who received qualifying offers from their respective teams. That is Shohei Ohtani, Cody Bellinger, Sonny Gray, Aaron Nola, Blake Snell, Josh Hader, and Matt Chapman. They have until Tuesday, November 14th, the date of our next episode, to decide whether or not they will accept those offers. My guess is, personally, I don't see any of those guys accepting that offer, but we'll see. I think they will all put their value to the test, and quite simply because it's worth it for each of them. But let me know if you feel differently. If any one of them was to accept, who would it be? Ohtani? Just kidding. The GM meetings also started today in Scottsdale, Arizona. So this is where the front office executives of all the teams and the player agents all attend. There's less media and less people there in general than like the winter meetings, which are going to happen about a month from now. And it's not necessarily a time when big moves are made, but it's definitely when everybody starts to put the feelers out on who's available, who's up for what, and start to really plot out their off season. So the hot stove today, it's just warming up. It typically gets hotter during winter meetings, which are going to be December 3rd through 6th in Nashville this year. And of course, we will be here to follow all of that action as well. The other date to keep an eye on here that is coming up quick is the non-tender deadline for arbitration eligible players. We're live. This is what happens when we're live. The non-tender deadline for arbitration eligible players is November 17th. This deadline is specific to arbitration eligible players. Who are those, Kelsey? I know. The way that all of this works, let me just say this really quick. The way that all of this works is really interesting and fascinating. And as baseball fans, I think there's a lot of us that like to know the inner workings of things and like statistics and like the business side of everything, which is maybe not the same in other sports. But I would ask you to remember that just because you you might be engaging with a fan that doesn't necessarily understand all of this, doesn't mean that they're not a great fan and that they don't want to learn about it. So I think we can have a tendency to kind of be snappy or act like people are stupid, especially online if they like don't fully understand this stuff. But there's a lot to it. It also changes all the time, which is why we're talking about it. And so if someone says to you, something like, "Oh, I really want my team to trade for Blake Snell," and instead of pointing and laughing at them and acting like they're the stupidest idiot, maybe just explain to them like, actually, Blake Snell is a free agent this year, so which means he doesn't belong to a team anymore because he's reached that point in his years of major league service that he now gets to take ownership of his contract and where he wants to play and how much he's going to get paid. So if you want your team to get Blake Snell, they're going to have to offer him the most attractive contract for him to come and play. But this arbitration eligible players is like a whole nother piece of it. So it's the piece in between the guys who have just come in, who are under total team control. It's between those guys and when you hit free agency, that 3 to 6 year mark. But this is a way, this non-tender deadline is a way for a team to cut a player who is not yet eligible for free agency. So just because you're still under some level of team control and you're out of options to return to the team's minor league system, you can still be cut loose by the team. They don't have to figure out how to trade you or pay you, etc. So you will see teams over the next 10 days who will non-tender players, meaning they will not offer them a contract to enter into arbitration. And this player will then also become a free agent. This is where we get the small free agent deals. It's not all multi-million-dollar players, right? There are these guys who are non-tendered, who maybe they were on a really high upward trajectory, or they didn't play a lot for a season or two and are not holding up to their, arbitration contract value. And it's maybe just time for them to move on and reset somewhere else. So for me, I think Tyler O'Neill is a good example of this for the St. Louis Cardinals right now. That's like the one that a player that I have followed that I think there is probably a chance that he could be non-tendered by the Cardinals, and he would be a pretty big name to be non-tendered. So there are some other players that the Cardinals could certainly non-tender as well, but they're not going to be guys that you're going to be super surprised by any means. But what do you think? What do you think about Bro? I'm a Bro fan. I'm rooting for him wherever he ends up, but I do think that his time and his value with the Cardinals may have expired, and this might just be the best way for them to handle that moving forward. But all we can do is wait to see. It's got to happen by November 17th. So we'll have a lot more to talk about there in about 10 days or so. Let's get into some of the hottest headlines that we are hearing that mostly surrounds the manager movement around the league right now. And yeah, I'm going for it. Let's talk about it. Let's get into it. Craig Counsell was announced today as the new manager of the Chicago Cubs. In a shock to all of Major League Baseball, I think, Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic announced today that Craig Counsell has agreed to a 5-year deal for over $40 million, still waiting on the specifics to come out from the team with the Chicago Cubs. This will make him the highest paid manager in Major League Baseball, and good for him. If you've listened in, you may or may not know that I am a Craig Counsell fan through and through. This means he will not return as manager of the Milwaukee Brewers, where he spent his last 9 seasons. Now, Craig is from Milwaukee, so I think that's the number one reason that this surprised all of us. He's from Milwaukee. He played his last 4 years of his Major League Baseball career with the Brewers. He came over from the Brewers, fun fact, from the Diamondbacks in 2007 when they traded Lyle Overbay. Lyle Overbay. It's like my favorite Major League Baseball name ever. They traded, one more time, Lyle Overbay, among others, for Craig Counsell. So it was rumored that he might go to manage the Mets, which I'm going to say it now. I think I've processed it enough to tell you, I think I would have hated that even more. I have at least some level of emotional connection and I don't appreciation is maybe too strong of a word, but I have friends and family who are Cubs fans. I live in the freaking city of Chicago, you guys. The majority of my adult life, I lived steps away from Wrigley Field. But here we are. So there's just something like slimy and grimy about the Mets that would have felt more wrong if I'm being honest. And I've got some other reasons for why I've like come to terms and I'm trying to really make the most of this announcement in maybe a different way, reframe it for myself. But because the Mets have named David Stearns their new president of baseball operations, he formerly held that same position for the Brewers. He has a long-term relationship with Craig Counsell. He interviewed there. And so that was, surely Uncle Steve was going to write the biggest check for Craig Counsell and he was going to come on over. But Counsell also has, kids who are still school aged. I believe his son or maybe multiple of his kids are going to play professional baseball and are just getting started, and he's going to want to be around for that. So obviously Chicago is a hell of a lot closer than New York from where he still lives in the Milwaukee area to this day. And I can tell you it's a super easy commute. Not that I assume he will do it daily, but it is a very easy commute from Chicago to Milwaukee. And I can see where, that really becomes a non-issue in terms of his decision there. But in 15 years, this is really interesting. In 15 years in Major League Baseball as a player, Craig Counsell made $22 million. So now he's going to make $40 million just in this 5-year contract as a manager. So this is obviously life-changing money, and no one can fault him. I'm sorry, Brewers fans. I know you're hurt. I would be too. And I am bummed for you. I truly am, because I loved him with that organization and I'd much rather see him stay with that organization. But no one can blame him for taking the money. That is what people do. That is what all of us would do given the right opportunity, right? Milwaukee is also the smallest market team in Major League Baseball. I think they're neck and neck with the Cincinnati Reds. So with that, Craig Counsell is coming to a market that has a completely different level of resources to give him what he really wants, not only, monetarily in terms of his contract, but the opportunity to win is very different with the resources that the Cubs have readily available in terms of writing those checks to all the players as well, and building a roster that Craig Counsell is just going to be set up to succeed with. So there are, a few things that I really like about this, and I want to focus on that because I am a Craig Counsell fan. The thing that I really like is this is a big show in a major market team's willingness to invest in a manager and saying this manager is going to be a big piece of what takes us to the next level. I think we can all agree, probably across Major League Baseball, that David Ross has been a fine manager, but Craig Counsell is next level. And clearly, that is what the Cubs believe is going to take them to their next championship. So there are a few things that the last 4 teams standing this season in Major League Baseball have in common for very fundamentally different teams, but they both had great starting pitching, a 1-2, bam, bam, and veteran old school leadership from their managers. You had Dusty Baker, Bruce Bochy, obviously. We've got Rob Thompson and Terry Lavello. And those guys have a different relationship and a different level of respect in their organizations. So I think that's the kind of guy that Chicago is now seeing, like, we want to make that investment in. I can't really speak to, the way that the Cubs are parting ways with David Ross. I'm sure more will come out. We will hear from him at some point. I'm sorry, Rossi. I am not a David Ross or a Cubs fan particularly, but obviously that's just like a really harsh thing to even think about. I know a lot of us on social media were like, what if David Ross is reading these tweets with us and he's just finding out right now? So who can say? But David Ross, I think the thing that I am hearing kind of across the board from Cubs fans is generally they thought he was doing a fine job. There are not a lot of Cubs fans who are calling for his head. There were certainly some. There's always some. But most of them were generally happy with him. They loved him as a player. They wanted to see him succeed, if nothing else, as a manager. But you can't look at this and not be excited about it, at least in some capacity. And for the Cubs fans that I've heard who say they don't like Craig Counsell, fair, but tell me why, because I'm not really sure. Is it just because he managed the Brewers, or like what is it about him as a manager? And don't say his playoff winning record, because again, we just talked about how the Milwaukee Brewers were the smallest market team in all of baseball. And he has not been given a roster. Did you really look at the Milwaukee Brewers roster anytime they've made the postseason and be like, that was a World Series team? Craig Counsell just couldn't get him there. No, you did not. So I don't want to talk about that. Give me some other reason of why you don't like Craig Counsell, because his playoff winning percentage ain't it. It's not going to hold up for me. The other thing that this means is that the Chicago Cubs are in on it. And by it, I mean everything. The Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes, in. Cubs are going for him. Yamamoto, they will try to make it happen. They have clearly claimed that they are here in their next winning window, and they're going for it. So Cubs fans, how you feeling? What's your take here? You feel bad for Ross, can't get over it? You don't like Craig Counsell? Or are you just freaking pumped because what your ownership did today was say, like, the time is now? My personal inner struggle with this news is that clearly one of my favorite managers in Major League Baseball has signed with the team I'd like to see succeed the least. But I think leadership is so important, and I want to see Craig Counsell do well. So I'm very tormented. The turmoil is real inside of me. I just don't want to see him prove that and do well with the Cubs. I think it's really great that, I think this is big and important for managers to deserve recognition and continued respect and investment from teams across the league. I think him signing this contract is important for all of that. So I'm glad to see it. But why did it have to be with the Cubs? It's twisting me up inside. Also, I have to mention this lamp behind me. If you're watching on YouTube, there's this lamp behind me. My grandmother was a huge Cubs fan, and my mom and my mom's whole side of the family are still Cubs fans, but my grandmother was definitely like the biggest Cubs fan. She did get to see them win in 2016, but I reference this lamp because she gave me this lamp, and sometimes this lamp will like flicker on and off and be really finicky. And I think it's a common thing that, you might hear that people will see their lost loved ones, like, make an appearance through electricity or whatever. So whenever that happens, I always think like, oh, my grandma gave me this lamp and it's flickering and she's trying to tell me something. So I'm here like talking shit about the Cubs, just thinking this lamp is about to go crazy, and that would really freak me out. But I'm sorry, Grandma. I know you understand. So what I am going to take more than anything as the silver lining here is this. The Cubs are going to force the National League Central Division to level up. The Reds are coming. The Reds are up and coming. You can't deny it. The Cubs are absolutely coming for it. They just said it. They put it out there, stamped it. And the Cardinals better seriously step it up, because they will not continue to default their way into the playoffs with the way that things are shaping up. So thank you, Chicago. I hope Mozeliak and co. is staring down the barrel and saying challenge accepted for 2024. Whew. I could go on about all of that for a while, but I hope I made my points there. In other managerial news, the Mets, while they did not sign Craig Counsell, they did announce today that Carlos Mendoza, who is a former bench coach for the Yankees, will be their new manager. So big congrats to Carlos Mendoza. He is going to be a first-time manager, and he will join Ozzie Guillen as the only Venezuelan-born full-time manager in Major League history. So very cool to see that kind of representation. That is super important. There is so much work done, and Venezuela is a huge part of the developmental leagues and Major League Baseball. So very cool to see that. And for those of you saying that, Mendoza does not have any managerial experience, first of all, yeah, it is kind of unique to have a first-time manager in a major market team, especially when Steve Cohen says he's going for it. But is he going for it? We heard he might be having a down year here or two. And that could be a good time to, give somebody new a chance, put him in here, especially under a new president of baseball ops. And I would also say, second of all, to that argument, I think that Carlos Mendoza does have some managerial experience because as the bench coach for the Yankees, he had to fill in for Aaron Boone every time Aaron Boone got ejected, which is a lot of times. He gets ejected or got ejected, I think last season at least, more than any other manager in Major League Baseball. And he even had a suspension or two, I think. So Carlos Mendoza has had to step up there and obviously proven in the New York circuit that he can do it. I do think he will be a different type of manager than Buck Showalter. So it'll be interesting to continue to talk more about that as well. The other big announcement today in the managerial sense is that Stephen Vogt will be set to manage the Cleveland Guardians. Seems like a super good fit. He is a longtime major league catcher, and he was coaching with the Mariners last season. It seems like players across the board have a lot of great things to say about him. So excited to watch his managerial career get underway. The last big headline that I want to talk about here before we get into awards is the Cincinnati Reds, who opted out of Joey Votto's final year of his contract with them. This was really the only headline that I saw in terms of players or teams opting in or out. I think for the most part, they were pretty predictable, but this one shook some people. Whether it was predictable or not, yeah, absolutely, Susie. It made us all hurt in here, in our hearts, because Joey Votto is a man of the people. He is impossible not to root for if you are a baseball fan of any kind, and maybe even if you're not a baseball fan, because while I am not on TikTok, I have heard he is a great contributor to TikTok and the world of social media and beyond, as well as obviously on the baseball field. So it's not unpredictable because he has not played a lot. He's been injured. He is certainly not the Joey Votto of the last couple of seasons. Is he worth paying $20 million to next year? It pains me to say it, but I think we all know he's not. Like, that's fine. Let's just say it. But what is it in terms of worth? Because there are a lot of Reds fans that pay to come see Joey Votto play. Similarly to how I talked about, I don't care if Adam Wainwright has the worst season ever, which look, he did. He made the St. Louis Cardinals so much money last season. He was absolutely worth paying $17 million to. So if you did the same thing with the Joey Votto retirement tour, I think the Reds probably could have milked that. Maybe that's not their style, and it's totally the Cardinals style. But the biggest thing is that we really just hope it's not the end for Joey Votto. And I have to imagine it can't be, right? I mean, Albert Pujols came back to the Cardinals, signed a $1 million deal, and look what happened. So we can only hope that something like that will happen for Joey Votto. But what is really crazy is that Joey Votto, like Adam Wainwright, has played with the Cincinnati Reds for his entire career, his entire major league career. And so it's crazy to see these last 17 years go by and him be one of these last standing, like, true franchise players. And they're just like, sorry, dude, gotta go. Like, can't afford to pay you 20 mil for the retirement tour. Again, I get it. It's business. The Reds are definitely on the up and up, and they're like ready to go for it. And I'm sure that that is absolutely part of it as well. If you're, planning to have a year where maybe there's not as much to push for, then yeah, you capitalize on that Joey Votto retirement tour, but that's not where they're at. Susie says, can you imagine him signing with like the Royals and having Greinke and Votto on the same team? Magic. I hope there is something that Major League Baseball has up its sleeve for Joey Votto that we will all get to enjoy. And I'm sure to some extent there will be. So we'll continue to root for you, Joey, and continue to follow your story and hope to see you on a field somewhere where any of us would be happy to see you play in 2024. All right, awards season is here in Major League Baseball. In just the last couple hours, the award finalists were announced for the Manager of the Year, the Rookie of the Year, the Cy Young, which is the Pitcher's Award, and the MVP, the Most Valuable Player Award. So I'm actually going to check these out with you because I did see them coming in, but I didn't get a chance to like write them down or make hard notes about it. But it looked like for the most part that the people that we were expecting to get nods got them. Was there anyone that you think, first of all, let's talk about snubs. Is there anybody that you think didn't get a nod here? I'm seeing our first award that was announced was the American League Cy Young Award finalists. No surprise here, Garrett Cole of the Yankees, Kevin Gausman of the Blue Jays, and Sonny Gray of the Twins. I'm a little surprised to see Sonny Gray on there. Not mad about it, but my favorite to win that one is Garrett Cole for sure. I think he's a shoo-in. I think that's probably universally agreed on, but you let me know. Is there anybody you don't see on there? I think there could have been a couple others, but they kind of fell off or got injured. So that seems right to me. Your NL Manager of the Year award finalists, Craig Counsell of the then Milwaukee Brewers, don't get it confused, Skip Schumacher of the Miami Marlins, iconic manager and trendsetter, and Brian Snitker, gotta love him, of the Atlanta Braves. These are all great managers. These are all great candidates. I'm very pleased with this lineup, but Skip Schumacher is my winner through and through. He better win, you guys. I'll be so excited. Like, do not take this away from me. Our American League Rookie of the Year finalists are Tanner Beebe of the Guardians. Okay. Tristan Casas of the Red Sox. Wow, I forgot about him. And then, of course, Gunnar Henderson of the Orioles. I think Gunnar is the clear favorite there. I'm thinking Josh Young is my snub here. That's why I'm like, wait, there's somebody who I expected to be here who's not here, and it's Josh Young of the Rangers. Interesting. Gunner's your winner, I think, for sure, but where's Josh Young? Weird. What do you think? Our AL Manager of the Year, so let's look at the American League for managers. Bruce Bochy, duh, love him. Kevin Cash, the Tampa Bay Rays, and Brandon Hyde of the Baltimore Orioles. Bruce Bochy, I think, would be an easy one. I mean, he won the World Series. He came out of retirement. We love his story. He's basically the Bill Belichick of baseball. But I think Brandon Hyde is probably going to take this one. And yes, that is a really good point. There's always rookies. We've got some chat banter going on here about rookies who don't necessarily get enough playing time to be fairly considered for the Rookie of the Year awards. And that's very true. There's even some guys from last season that I was like, oh, I didn't realize they played enough last season that they wouldn't qualify for Rookie of the Year this season. So that's always a bummer too. It really just depends on where they end up falling in their playing days. Okay, we've got to look at the NL Cy Young Award finalists here. So the NL pitchers, no surprise here, Zach Gallen, Blake Snell, and Logan Webb. So you've got D-back Zach Gallen, Padres Blake Snell, and Logan Webb of the San Francisco Giants. He's the one I'm probably the most surprised by. I think Blake Snell is going to take this one from what I'm hearing. Like, he's the favorite that everyone thinks should win. I think Zach Gallen should win, but that's because I don't love Blake Snell's like less pedestrian style. And I think he just gets away with a lot. And I think there's a lot of luck on his side. And maybe I'm wrong because, I mean, how can you really get that lucky over 162, over, 30 plus starts? Maybe not. But I just think there are so many circumstantial things about the way that he wins games. And I don't love that. So Zach Gallen to me is a more like fundamentally sound pitcher. And that's why I would like to see him win the NL Cy Young. Looking at our NL rookies of the year, we've got Corbin Carroll of the Diamondbacks, James Outman of the Dodgers. Like to see him get that nod out there in center field. And Kodai Senga of the New York Mets, who also had a great first season in the major leagues after coming over from the Japanese leagues. Corbin Carroll is the clear favorite to win here. I absolutely think he earned it. He should win. Definitely. But really cool to see these two other guys get some attention and get up for those awards. All right, now we're really getting into it. We got these MVPs. There's always so much discussion all season long about the MVP. And we did a couple episodes, a third of the way through the season, and then 2/3 of the way through the season where you voted on who you would pick at this point in the season for all of these awards. And we've been pretty spot on so far. But here we go. The American League Most Valuable Player Award finalists are Shohei Ohtani of the Angels, Corey Seager of the Rangers, and Marcus Semien of the Rangers. So there you go. Shohei Ohtani should have won this award last year, in my opinion. Come for me, Yankees fans. I'm just going to say it. He pitches and he hits, y'all. And he's really good at both. He is helping your team win, undoubtedly, as both a pitcher and a hitter every single time he's out there. So that is just contributing on a level at which any other player simply cannot do, because they are not doing, most of them aren't doing one at the level that he is doing both at. Anyway, I digress. He's definitely going to win it this year. Huge kudos to Corey Seager and Marcus Semien. Loved watching them in the playoffs, but Shohei Ohtani is going to take home that MVP this year. And then the National League Most Valuable Player Award finalists, you know it, Ronald Acuna Jr., Mookie Betts, and Freddie Freeman. All those National League household names. Love to see it. While I think it's easy to argue that Mookie Betts would be a great MVP, and on paper, and I would guess, don't hold me to this, but in terms of WAR, I do think Mookie Betts probably has a higher WAR at the end of the season than Ronnie Jr. But Ronnie Jr. just had an absolutely unreal season. And in terms of, again, the contribution that he directly had to his team and to Major League Baseball history, you got to give it up. So I think Ronald Acuna Jr. is my clear winner there, but there's definitely been hot debate between him and Mookie Betts. So you let me know what you think. The other big snub that I just want to mention real quick, along with giving a shout out to Susie over at Bourbon and Baseball, is, Tommy Edman, as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, did not win the National League Utility Gold Glove Award. I had some very complex emotions to process over this yesterday, which I had the pleasure of doing on the Bourbon and Baseball podcast with Susie. So please check out that episode. I'm going to link it in the show notes here so that you can go listen to us break down the World Series along with the Gold Glove Awards and what I'm hoping to see specifically from the Cardinals in the off-season. I talk about that there. And I also want to wish Susie a very happy birthday. Her birthday is coming up on Friday of this week. So give her a big birthday shout out as you are listening to or watching our episode this week. Also, happy birthday to Matthew Liberatore of the St. Louis Cardinals, who has just been, in my opinion, used and abused in all kinds of different ways in that organization in the last few years. Hoping for great things for you this year, Libby, and excited to see what this next year has in store for you. So a very happy birthday to our Matthew Liberatore. All right, before we wrap things up here today, next week is our gift guide episode. Yes, it is that time. We obviously had a lengthy discussion about determining whether or not the holiday season is here. It's here, folks. It's here. And if you're not thinking about your gifts already, then you're behind. So this time last year, I think it was actually November 15th, we dropped our first gift guide episode. I personally love to give gifts. I consider myself a good gift giver, but that is because I love to look for the perfect thing for people. I love the thought process behind it and the search and all of that good stuff. So not only are we going to give you some good ideas and specific recommendations in different price ranges like we did last year, but we're also going to talk through the mentality of how to find a good gift for someone. So obviously, like, I don't know everyone personally that you're looking for a gift for. And if I did, that would make it way easier for me to make a good recommendation. But if I can give you some insight into how my brain works when I'm looking for a good gift, then you can just use that and put it to use for whoever you need to shop for. So a couple things I need you to do. I need you to start thinking about who is the hardest to shop for on your list. You can send me an email, kbirdtweets@gmail.com. You can tweet to me, DM, whatever. Get at me and let me know if there's someone specifically that you are having a hard time finding a gift for, because I'll ask for a little bit of information from you and I might just make the perfect recommendation just for them on next week's episode. I'd love to help you out with that. The other thing I want you to think about, because we're going to cover this as well, is who is on your off-season wish list for your team? What free agent do you want your team to target? What trades do you want them to make happen? Come with your Christmas list for the off-season. Who are you going to John Mozeliak and asking for when you sit on Santa Mo's lap this year? I want to know. Let's talk about it. I'm going to give you mine next week, and I'd love to talk about yours. The other thing the last thing I will ask you to do is to follow us on social media. We're on Twitter at kbirdtweets. That's me. We're on Facebook. Our Facebook page is called Peace, Love, and Baseball. And you can follow us on Instagram at peace.love.baseball. You can watch here on YouTube, or you can listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon Music. I will see you next week for more peace, love, and baseball.